Ba-dum-bum. Ha! Oh my goodness, there you are. Hey, thanks for stopping by. I wanted to share, I don't know, a journey I've been on for quite a while, just continuing to ponder this BlazorWasm lazy loaded empire that I dreamed up some time ago. I want to talk about it kind of at a high level, then we're going to jump right into the bottom of the code, slowly, kind of crawl our way back out to the top, go back down to the bottom again, and then move pretty slow, right? So we'll kind of take it in three phases. First phase, let's just get some general concepts and a general sense of everything that is out here on the game board. First up, let's look at some pictures. All right. This should be pretty familiar to those of you that lean into like domain-driven or clean architecture, but with a whole lot of practicality and getting her did mixed into it. So we do have SignalR server available to the whole situation. I'll come up with some nomenclature there eventually. We have done the identity server, which I look forward to moving in with .NET 8's release to the kind of next answer that they've come up with for this. But we've had identity server for 10, 15 years. Absolutely great framework. I'm not mad at them. And kind of the initial idea, right? We're going to have our common kernel that everybody will take advantage of, and that's just a library. So that'll be published to NuGet and pulled back in. We have a core application. So even the core application is just this very thin layer, the initial website, if you will, that loads, and then it goes about loading different modules, some preloaded, which I'm calling core. And these are going to deal with things like maybe a financial core module that deals with all the money side of about any website you would want to deploy or application. May come across the time you need to deal with financials, right? Fine. Another common one I just call known accounts. And this is where we're going to start to understand businesses and users and relationships users have to businesses and businesses to businesses. And some of this to drive navigational constructs, menuing systems. Like every application I've ever built needed some of these very common things. And we'll take a look at those. The extreme lazy loaded nature, I have one version of this that I've been working on. There's like 20 different lazy loaded modules, and each one of these modules you're going to see is an entire beautiful application universe of its own. It keeps the conversation very simple and leaves how and where and when you're going to deploy things, and some of those decisions are pushed off to the very end, that the application is built in such a way that any option is available. Your own equipment, Kubernetes or OpenShift or Docker Compose or cloud or very close in a couple of corners, cloud native, so everything can fall asleep, right? Like a lot of those, if we do it right, are decisions we can make about how we want to publish our application that don't have to gravely impact the application architecture itself. It makes me very happy. These lazy modules, of which, again, we'll walk this slower as we evolve our conversation here, has a core set of libraries where the domain lives and some of those underlying business rules. We want to start with code at the bottom of our application stack instead of like databases or something else. You move into the infrastructure layer, and now you're dealing with databases, persistence in some way, files, other APIs. You can tap into any of these here. We move towards API when we'd want to expose some sort of HTTP RESTful endpoint. API common, we'll come back to. All libraries up to API. API is a thing that gets published that uses these libraries. Blazor Service and Service Loader are there to bootstrap the module, whether it's being rendered server-side or client-side, and allow that lazy module to participate in dependency injection and some of these higher-level concepts. Lazy Module C has exposed a Wasm kind of core module and a Wasm admin module. These are BlazorWasm modules right now. And the core behavior for like user and above, and then admin behavior for admin and above, these are loaded dynamically during navigation and usage. So the thin thing is deployed, it loads a few modules, and you begin interacting with the system. And depending on where you go and how you're logged in and who you are, these different entire sub-websites, if you will, sub-applications, will be loaded then into your browser client or whatever you're working with. So if you don't have rights and permission, maybe you don't deserve anything about this module because you didn't pay for it, or you have basic access, but you don't have any access to the admin component. This means these are all held and never delivered to the client if they didn't deserve it, which makes me very, very happy. I love it a lot. You can see other frameworks are coming about. I think like Angular's got micro-frontends, and there's others that have opened up other ways to accomplish similar things, and that makes me happy across the board. I'm happy for our industry. You're going to see at different times, there are some back-end processing services. Maybe these are like a stimulated endpoint that's just running a web worker background job, this kind of a thing. And then messaging services. I, at the end here, have started to think about and play with like Kafka, or what would it look like to have a nice messaging kind of bus living inside of this world to allow a little more communication across services. We finally get to that thin Blazor client I was talking about. A pre-render for that Blazor client. I'm looking forward to seeing what comes out again in .NET 8. There are some beautiful suggestions anyway I've been seeing about how quickly this entire Blazor empire is maturing, and it again makes me very happy. And then Maui. This works and has been lovely. I still need to get in and finish arm wrestling out some of the authorization authentication stuff because it works differently than simply consuming the identity server. All right, let's go back up. The UI has a common, so there's a Blazor client common that all modules, lazy and otherwise, share and have access to. And so most of the look and feel and behavior is plumbed up here, but then each module and then the client has the opportunity to decide how to ultimately look, feel, and behave. The entire application suite is aware of your domain and why you're here and what you're here to do, and can behave and render very differently depending on the answers to some of those. So it supports subwebs out of the box, right? Some pretty good concepts have been tackled. And then you also see testing, as it should appear at each of these layers, has a lovely set of patterns and answers in place. Everything that's gray, like 90% of this world, cooks down to DLL files. The modules themselves cook down to RCL files, which are just cool, fancy DLL files that can include CSS and JavaScript and images, and very nice. And all of these are then just deployed, my goodness, to NuGet. The APIs need hosted, server-side application, client application. And then when you get down to Maui, you're back to having installers. I will say, no matter what of these you choose to focus on the most, the Blazor client, the server side and pre-rendering, or Maui, they are all 100% compatible with these modules and these RCL deliveries, just in these libraries. Yeah, I like it. Very excited. So, again, just some high-level concepts. Docker Compose all the way up to something fancier. Houses many Docker containers, Nginx reverse proxies to direct traffic inside of your deployed Docker Compose, API endpoints to listen for each of these modules and submodules that you may be having access to or using, backend job servers, messaging servers, identity server, and SignalR server, things we've all talked about. Most of this deploys into NuGet or Artifactory or some other binary repository, and at some level, that's a GitHub empire. I should mention Jenkins in here somewhere, I guess. There's a few more things since I drew this that have come into play. So that's enough from the high level. Let's dive into some code. All right. So I promised we'd kind of, as we move into this next phase, we're going to go all the way down to the bottom of the code, walk our way all the way back out to the modules and other UI elements, walk back down to the code, and then in our third and final pass, we'll spend quite a bit of time digging through that code. I'll see you in a minute. Yeah. Cheers. Dun, 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 dun.